have to play a road game against the number 2 seed to get to the finals. It's not. But that's the kind of crap that the NCAA does every year to set it up difficulty level-wise based on who they like and who they don't. And not even that so much sometimes, but just the matchups that they want us to have for whatever reasons they want those matchups. I can't get into any or all of the potential reasons that they might have for doing it this way, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that they do it, and ideally it would be set up much more fair than the way than it is currently. I don't see how anyone can think that's fair for the number 1 seed Wisconsin. And I'm not a Wisconsin fan. I don't want Wisconsin to win. I'm not cheering for Wisconsin just because I'm from Minnesota and they're fairly close to Minnesota. No, in no means. I'm not cheering for Wisconsin. I'm just simply looking at something that should jump out at anybody as this isn't consistent. This isn't right. This isn't fair for one party involved. That's all I'm saying. Another example of the NCAA committee using their power to influence the tournament to have the matchups that they hope for best they can. And that would be Wichita State. Now, if you just look at your bracket, you're going to think, oh, Wichita State's not very good. They're a 7 seed in the tournament. 7 seeds aren't very good for the most part. It means there's 24 or more teams that they think are better than you. Well, Wichita State, who is currently a 7 seed, in Kentucky's region, the Midwest region, which we should just call it Kentucky's region. We shouldn't even call it the Midwest region. But anyway, throughout the entire season, Wichita State was a top 10 to top 15 team for almost the entire year, maybe top 10, top 20, somewhere in there. But they were within the top 20 for basically the entire season. They're currently ranked 12th on the BPI Power Index. They've won 10 of their last 12 games. I want to say they probably had a fluke loss in their conference tournament that the committee put way too much stock into, or were extremely thankful for to have that excuse to bump them down where they wanted them to be. I don't know. I got nothing to back that up, but it's a possibility. But the point being is that the entire body of work that we've seen from all the college teams in Division I this year tells us that Wichita State is the 12th best team, and the NCAA Tournament Committee decided to seed them as if they were one of the 25 to 30 best teams, not even in the top 24 best teams. And believe me, Wichita State is by no means the only school that's an example of this. It's just the main one I'm using to point out to you right now to illustrate my point. And that point again being that the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee gets their hands way too involved in the seeding and placement of the teams in this tournament. And it should be determined, much more by statistics, analytics, and things of that nature. Simply in the name of fairness and integrity. Well, names, I guess that would be. Fairness and integrity. It's college sports, after all, amateurs. So that's what they're supposed to stand for and do, right? But anyway, I'm just getting started on the college basketball discussion here on Balls Deep Sports Talk tonight. I'm your host, Scotty Ball. You're listening on Northern Lights Radio at WNLMradio.com, or maybe you're listening on the TuneIn app. Thank you for listening no matter what you're listening on. But hey, since we've been talking college basketball so much here to start the show and we've got plenty more to go, let's throw in at least one, maybe two quickies in here before we go back into the March Madness tournament. All right, first quickie here in the land of hockey, that being the great state of Minnesota. We got to talk some Minnesota Wild. Minnesota Wild win last night on the road in overtime, 3-2. And that 8th consecutive road win set a franchise record for the team. So way to go, Minnesota Wild. Dobby continues to be excellent, allowing only 2 goals last night, and when he allows 2 goals or less, we win. Plain and simple, pretty much. And he allows 2 or less goals. Like 20 out of 25 times. 80% roughly, 80% or better. He's allowing 2 or less goals. It's probably better than that. It's probably closer to 85%. But anyway, if you look at the NHL standings, playoff standings, with only probably about between 10 and 20 games to go yet, we'll say approximately 15 for most teams. But the Minnesota Wild, who were once scrambling to get at the 8th seed, the potential 8th seed in the playoffs, is in absolutely no danger of missing the playoffs anymore. They are almost a lock now to be in the playoffs. And they could possibly, if they continue to win, and other teams such as Chicago and Nashville continue to struggle a little bit and have some issues, they could easily wind up, maybe not the 3 seed, but the 4 seed or the 5 seed in the playoffs. It's very conceivable that they could get that high of a seed if they just continued on the path they're on. Now, the thing about that is I don't know that it's even important. It's nice if you're a Minnesota fan, you get those more home games, but I don't know that it's important when you got a team who just now is winning 8 consecutive road games and has a hot goalie. Home ice really doesn't make that big of a difference then when you got all those things working for you in playoff hockey. It's still something that's nice and you like to have, but it's not as much of a deal breaker on what your chances are for winning that game as it is when you don't have a hot goalie and a team that's won 8 consecutive games on the road prior to entering the playoffs. So to sum that up, the Minnesota Wild are coming. NHL, you're all on blast, everyone else. They are going to be in the playoffs. They are going to make it out of the first round. And once that happens, who knows? And let's see, one last hockey note. The Anaheim Ducks have surpassed the Nashville Predators as the number 1 team in the Western Conference. The Nashville Predators had held that number 1 spot almost throughout the entire season from start up until this point. However, they have hit a wall. You could say they're definitely on a downslide, not playing good hockey as of late, and they are no longer the number 1 team in the Western Conference. That would belong now to the Anaheim Ducks, who are playing great hockey. All right, well, I hope that was enough of a break from college basketball for you, because we got to get back to talking college basketball. As a matter of fact, if you have filled out any brackets and have the opportunity to alter them, edit them yet, and haven't fully submitted them to where it's done, you can't change anything anymore, then these next 10 to 20 minutes of this show are crucial. They're vital. They're essential to your odds of winning in your bracket pool. I got the picks you need. I got the info you need. So let's get into the meat of the show, which is the same as Balls on Fire this week, college basketball, specifically the March Madness NCAA basketball tournament. And we're going hardcore bracketology here on the meat. All right, now first off, what I want to do is not necessarily go over teams and who you should pick, who you should avoid, stuff like that, at least not for right now. What I want to give you is some basic bracketology information. Now, filling out a good bracket is just like anything else. If you research your history and the tendencies of the way events have played out in the past, it definitely will increase your chances of accurately projecting what is to come in future events. So, here's where we're going to start off on that. The one round and out, for the most part, 8-9 matchups in the tournament. This is supposed to be the most evenly matched up, games that we have on paper in the tournament if they seed correctly and fairly. And history would tell you that they've actually done a fairly good job on that, as the results as far as who wins the 8 seed or the 9 seed, it's almost exactly 50-50. Now, the 9 seed has won like 2 or 3 more times in all of the history of the tournament than the 8 seed has. So the 9 seed does have a slight advantage. However, since 2000, the 8 seeds have actually won more games than the 9 seeds. So, this tells us that we do not want either all 4 8 seeds winning in our bracket or all 4 9 seeds winning in our bracket. Ideally, we pick 2 9 seeds and 2 8 seeds. That's what the odds tell us is going to happen, and then you hope you identify those teams correctly. That's what I'm talking about, bracketology information. Now, another bracketology hot point, if you follow it on television or read it on your phone, other social media devices, what have you, but it's got a lot of attention lately, and it is the 5 seed, 12 seed matchups. Now, it's gotten a lot of attention lately because it's happened a lot of times just throughout the history of the tournament. Only 3 times in the last 30 years has at least one 12 seed not advanced to the second round. So in other words, 27 out of the last 30 years, at least one 12 seed has beaten a 5 seed. That's pretty strong, overwhelming evidence to support that at least one 12 is likely to win this year. Now, where it gets even more interesting in that matchup is this little tidbit. Since 2013, so the last 2-3 tournaments, 6 out of 8 games have been won by the 12 seed. 6 out of 8 games won by the 12 seed. So recent history, last 2-3 years, suggests that the 12 seed is overwhelming favorite, and you're more likely to get 3 of the 4 12 seeds winning, as opposed to the bottom minimum that we have determined of at least one will win. So that tells us that at these 5-12 matchups, we need to be picking somewhere between 1 12 seed to 3 12 seeds to advance to the second round. So to me, it makes the most sense. You split that in half, and we go, okay, 2-12, we're going to pick 2 12 seeds, and we're going to pick 2 5 seeds, and then you decide who you like and who you don't. So another interesting, almost as equally interesting matchups historically, if you look throughout it, would be the 4-13, the 4 seed versus 13 seed matchups. Sorry. Now, in last year's tournament, all 4 number 4 seeds won. And that had not happened since 2007. And while I don't have it written down how many times that's happened here, I'm pretty sure it's similar to the 5-12s, where it's not very often that not a single 13 seed, at least one of them, wins. And it has never happened in consecutive years where not a single 13 seed has won. So the fact that it happened last year strongly suggests, or that it didn't happen last year, that a 13 seed didn't win last year. That fact suggests that almost even more so guaranteed a 13 seed, at least one 13 seed will win this year. However, only 3 times ever has there been more than one 13 seed advance in a tournament. So that does suggest to us that we should definitely pick at least one 13 seed to upset a 4 seed in the first round, but picking 2 of them is risky. It's possible, but it's risky. Alright, so we'll move on to the 6-11 matchups and the bracketology info behind the 6-11 matchups. Now, 2 of the teams in the 6-11 games have an interesting situation. 2 of them face teams who have to win a play-in game to get into the tournament. The first one of which was last night between Ole Miss and BYU, where BYU was up by about 17 at halftime, and then Ole Miss came roaring back and ended up winning, I want to say 94-90, something like that, and it was an incredible game. And the absolute, a perfect and exceptional way to start off the March Madness tournament. If you were lucky enough to watch it last night on True TV. What up, True? But so anyway, this is a fairly new thing. We've had play-in games before in the tournament, but generally they were for a 16 seed out of small non-conference schools, and thus they never made it past the first round, and it wasn't anyone ever really cared about. However, this year, and I believe this is the first year, but maybe it happened last year, but someone let me know if you know, let me know when this started. But this year, at least, 2 of the 6-11 matchups, the 11 seed is